you could just pay a little bit of attention. I know I'm not Andy Gray. I know you were promised jokes. However, the issues that the next lady has been raising over the last couple of years at Westminster aren't any joking matter. However, equally, she has done an absolutely amazing, brilliant job in just hanging on in there like a wee Scots terrier, no letting go, and actually beginning to see some results for it. So I really want you to give a huge Perthshire welcome to Alison Pulis.
Hello, good evening everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me along tonight. I must say I find it quite strange to be invited along by such a legend of the party as Pete Wishart to come and give him support, particularly since he's actually sitting in a bigger majority than I am. So I'm very, very pleased to be here, and also in such illustrious company as Rosanna Cunningham and John Swinney, who I am hugely admiring of and have been for many, many years. And as a trio for Perthshire, they have provided this constituency with such a strong voice over the years. They have been there, they have supported the constituents that they have had, and they have made sure that those issues are tackled. And you only have to look at Pete's leaflet that's sitting on the table there to see the range of those issues as well. And as a new MP arriving as part of that band of 56 in 2015, Pete was a great support to me as well, and to all of us in that group, because Pete knew the tricks. Pete knew what the Tories would get up to and what we had to watch for and what we had to look for when we were sitting on those green benches for those first few weeks. And it's been hugely helpful to have somebody like Pete with that experience in Parliament, because he knows how it all works, and he can tell the rest of us, and we can all pick up all the good and bad habits that he has in there for niggling the Tories, which is good sport if nothing else. But as a new MP down the road, finding my feet, the first kind of really big issue that came to me that I never thought I would still be talking about today is the rape clause that was in the 2015 budget. Now, as a lowly new backbench SNP MP, my job was to run out and grab copies of the big red book, the budget, and bring them back in for everybody else. So we're sitting there on the benches listening to the speeches. And my habit in 8 years in Glasgow City Council was always to read my committee papers from the back to the front, because that's when they would hide all the stuff, because nobody ever got to the back pages of the committee papers. They were all done by that point. They'd go, oh, paper 15, forget about it. And that's where the officers would always sneak the things that they didn't want you to read. So in that habit, I started reading the budget paper from the back to the front, and I got to page 88. And it had this wee phrase in it about restricting child tax credits to the first 2 children in a family, with exceptions being made in cases of multiple births and if children were conceived through rape. And I went, wait a minute here, what is this doing in a budget document? Roger Mullen, does that say what I think it says? Maddie Black, does that say what I think it says? We think that's what it says. And I couldn't fathom why that would be there. I couldn't fathom why or how or for what reason they were going to make women prove that they had had the most traumatic experience of their life just so they could get child tax credits. So I started asking questions, because I'm that kind of person, I like to ask questions. And I've asked questions of 2 Prime Ministers now, 2 Chancellors, several DWP Ministers, and I've raised it over 25 times in Parliament since July 2015, and I was looking up the numbers on the way up here tonight, and it is 1 year, 10 months and 11 days that I've been raising this issue, and I've still not had justification from the Tories as to why this is necessary. And through all of this, what has been the core thing for me is the status of women and children in our society. Because the Tories don't seem to think that children have the status that we think they have. Our Scottish Government wants to provide baby boxes, wants to provide the best start in life, wants to give children, every child, free books so that they can learn to read with their parents. Whereas the Tories They don't think you should have any child benefits at all if they could get their way. And that's what worries me so much about the two-child policy, about this restriction to the first 2 children in a family. So in asking all these questions, I said, well, what about if you have twins? And originally, the DWP were saying, well, if the twins are the first 2 born in a family, that's your lot. Too bad. And they've relaxed that a wee bit because of some of the pressure they were put under on that. But they still don't take into account if you have children, say, from a previous relationship and you come together in a new family with a child from another relationship, you would lose entitlement to tax credits for that additional child. Now, what kind of choice is that for a family? You want to come together as a new family through love and everything else, but you lose out financially for doing so. That's just bizarre. And for other reasons as well, so people who are of religious minorities in this country, who would tend to have more than 2 children as a result of their religious belief, they will lose out as well. And the government have never acknowledged that in any of the questions I've asked. They have never acknowledged that. And speaking to some of the organisations, I spoke to an Orthodox Jewish organisation, and they said that 52% of their families would have more than 2 children, 60% for Muslim families. And that's something that the Tories have never, in all of this, acknowledged that this is the case, that they are discriminating against religious groups in this policy that they're putting forward. And through all of this as well, they have been incredibly sleek-it, incredibly sleek-it. So putting it in the back pages of the budget documents, refusing to answer questions. They weren't going to do a public consultation. When I met with ministers on this, they had no intention whatsoever of doing any kind of public consultation on this very important issue. They said, we've consulted with 4 groups. 4 women's groups, representative organisations from Rape Crisis and Women's Aid. And I said, all right, okay, which ones were those? And they told me. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to go and meet with these organisations and see what they say. And I met with those organisations and they said, oh, we didn't say it was fine at all. We're completely against this. So the minister said, oh no, we've met with, consulted with, we've done all these things. Not a bit of it. These organisations were saying, we don't want this at all, we think this is terrible, and we told the minister that in the very brief half-hour meeting we had. So you go through that as well, and then they were saying, sort of further to that, that these organisations, these very important national women's organisations across the whole of the UK, because they get government funding, they weren't allowed to speak out about it. They weren't allowed to campaign on it. And that is why, if you looked at the petition that was running in this recently, overwhelmingly Scotland was signing petitions against the rape clause and England wasn't. And that's partly because those women's organisations in England aren't allowed to campaign in the way that Scottish women's organisations were campaigning from the start. And I pay huge tribute to Scottish Women's Aid, to Scottish Rape Crisis Glasgow, Engender, and your own Perthshire Rape Crisis here as well, because they have been vociferous and they have told people and they have spoken out about it and they have been brave and they have been bold and they have been demonstrating all the way through this process where their sisters down the road weren't able to because the UK government gags them. And this is what we're up against in all these policies, this government gag about organisations speaking out for women in the most vulnerable situations in society. So eventually they did come out and they had a consultation. They had a very brief consultation over a very brief period of time, pretty much over the Christmas New Year period, about this. And the women's organisations in Scotland are great. If you go onto the government website and you look for the consultation, you will see that there are women's organisations right across Scotland where the majority are respondents to that. And I'm so proud of them all for doing that, for taking the time, for putting their case forward. So what did the UK government do when this response to this consultation came out? They snuck it out on the day of the Trump inauguration. When the eyes of the world were looking at the misogynist across the sea, all those things, they snuck it out on that day where they knew that it wouldn't get in the news, it wouldn't get coverage, nobody would notice. I noticed. And a few other people noticed, but that's the kind of sneakiness that they do. They hide things all the time because they know they can't answer to it. They know that this kind of thing is just so wrong. So they snuck out their consultation. I tried to get debates in the House of Commons. I was stymied by procedures. There's a thing where you can ask for an urgent question, and I got told it wasn't urgent enough because it wasn't coming in for a few weeks. And the reason it wasn't coming in for a few weeks, because the policy was due to come in on the 6th of April. It was due to come into force, which was coincidentally during the Easter holidays. where the House of Commons is empty, there's no MPs, everybody's away on their Easter holidays, campaigning in the council elections, doing other things. So again, sneaky, trying to avoid all types of scrutiny on this. And during this time as well, the government actually got scrutiny from some unexpected places. It got scrutiny from, and this is true, I didn't even know this existed, the House of Lords Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee. Because Engender, that fantastic women's organisation in Scotland, they decided that they were going to have a mass lobbying campaign of the House of Lords Secondary Legislation Committee. The Secondary Legislation Committee clerks were saying, please stop sending us things, we've never had this amount of people getting in touch with us before. Our email's broken, we don't know what to do. So they had all these responses coming in. So the House of Lords Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee did a brilliant response to this. They said that they didn't think this policy was actually going to work, could actually ever be implemented, because it was so impractical. And they looked at all the other concerns around religious groups and families coming together and all the other things to do with the two-child policy. And they questioned all those things line by line. It was a brilliant response. And what did the UK government do? Kicked into the long grass. They said, no, it'll all be fine. And all the way through this, I've been told it'll all be fine. It'll be carried out sensitively, it'll be done right. And that isn't even true, because this policy, the two-child policy and the rape clause, relies upon third-party organisations to verify that a woman's circumstances were consistent with having conceived as the result of rape. So that isn't just, as Ruth Davidson says, ticking a box on a form and signing your name. It's not. It's going to your GP, it's going to a nurse, it's going to a social worker and saying, these are my circumstances, and describing that to them and having them be prepared to sign their name and put their professional credentials on a paper that goes back to DWP and HMRC. Now, if that health professional is doing that properly, they need to know that. They need to have confidence that what they're signing with their official stamp is correct, because the DWP can check up on that. So all of these things have to be put in place for doing that. But before it came into force on the 6th of April, no health professionals, no social workers, no GPs had been trained in the policy or in sexual violence training that you would need to be able to have that conversation appropriately. No training rolled out at all. So they couldn't even guarantee that if you turned up to your GP or your nurse or a social worker on the 6th of April that they would actually have the faintest idea what you were talking about, never mind being able to sit down and go through that form with you. So it's not even been a policy that's been implemented well, even if you got the principles out the road. So all of these things are still there, are still true. And I would also, in all of this, like to thank so much Nicola Sturgeon for speaking out on this as well, going to the United Nations and speaking at the Women in the World Conference and letting the rest of the world know what these Tories are up to. Because we can't rely on the traditional media to pick this up. We can't rely even on women's organisations because they're gagged. We can't rely on the press because they're not picking it up. So we have to go around that. And we have to have these conversations in other places and tell the world and tell other people that these are happening. And I was so proud of everybody that spoke in the Scottish Parliament debate on this issue. And I must say, for all the criticisms I might have of Kes Dugdale, the speech that she gave, the testimony that she gave in that debate, highlights just how horrendous this policy is and how this will re-traumatise women and children and families. And we can't forget that this is what the Tories are doing now. This is what the Tories are doing, the small majority. The Tories did terrible things in coalition. The Tories have done worse things over the past 2 years with the majority. You know, they've taken people's disability cars away. They have made cuts to budgets right across across various different sectors. We're giving tax breaks to the very well off and to businesses and making sure that all their pals are well looked after, while the most vulnerable in society are being left behind. And to me, that speaks to the way that the Tories see people, the way they see society. And again, I see them. They don't just divide people up about the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, the scroungers and the skivers. It's even more conniving than that. It's more wicked than that. Because you're dividing the very wealthy against the people who would like to be very wealthy. You're dividing people who are working, who would like to, against people who are just below them on that wee rung and would like to move up. They're playing people who are poor against people who have even less. They're saying to people, well, if you're working and you don't claim benefits, there's somebody behind you trying to claim benefits and scrounge from you. They're claiming, and people who have disabilities are being played off against one another as well. People who can walk against people who can't walk get different rates. And in Glasgow, I get a lot of immigration casework through my office, and they're playing people off against each other there too. So people who have come to this country, I was speaking to a guy today who's been here since 1982 when I was born, and he's been told he can't get leave to remain in this country. He's got children here, he's got family here, the rest of his family live here, and he's been told he doesn't have the right to stay. And he's saying, well, all these European citizens, they can come in at the moment. So they're playing off EU citizens against people from other countries as well. At every single level, they are playing people off against one another. And this is what we have to watch against, what we have to guard against as the SNP. Because we believe in a Scotland that is fair. It's fairness that attracted me to this party, that sense that we can do better for our people in Scotland. And we must make sure that we don't let the Tories unravel, pull on that thread until there's no jumper left, until that society has gone from round about us, because they do that. They do that and play people off against one another, and they come through the middle while people are fighting on the other side to help their pals and help their colleagues on that side. And we have to look after that society. We have to be friends with one another, regardless of our circumstances, and say, well, you know what, I could be in that position too. Because the two-child policy speaks to a government that even wants to divide women against one another as well, against women who can, have control over their reproductive rights against women who don't have that luck or that privilege. And it says to the poor that you're not allowed to have children. Now, people are not very far away from that. And imagine yourself, you have 3 children, you're doing well. When you had those 3 children, you could well afford them, you were comfortably off. But then life happens. Something happens. So somebody takes ill, somebody dies, somebody walks out of that door and never comes back again. And then you have your 3 children. And there is no retrospective thing in the two-child policy that says, your circumstances have changed. It just says 2 children, that's it. And while they're doing that as well, if a parent dies, they're taking away the bereavement benefits too. So people are being left in situations where, as no fault of their own, they are being punished by the Tories for the circumstances they are in. No fault of their own, life happens, things change. And a social security system with fairness as its heart, as the Scottish Government wants to build, looks after people in those circumstances. It picks people up when they're down, when things don't go quite as well as they would like to do. It supports people, and it changes and it transforms lives for the better. And that's what we want to talk about the Scotland that we can build, about the fair society that we can have if we had the control over all of those things. Whereas the Tories, they want to unravel society. They want to dismantle the NHS. They want to dismantle, if you look at some of the school situations in England, they want to dismantle those. We must guard against that with every fibre of our being. And when you go out to the doorsteps in Perth and North Perthshire, when you tap on those doors, it's not about a second independence referendum. They want to talk about that because that's easy for them. We want to talk about the things that are difficult for the Tories. Those issues that they cannot address. Those issues about fairness and society and where we're going as a country. Whereas where they want to take us and take us back, not to the 70s or the 60s, to the 50s, way back, wherever you want to go, they are going backwards. And Scotland wants to go forwards to a society where we look after one another, where that is important and we value the life and the opportunity and the hope for every child in this country, not just the first 2. So get out on the doors and chat the doors and get Pete re-elected, because you need his voice there alongside every single SNP MP that we get re-elected. And I really hope that we get them all back in. Thank you.